Hi everyone, welcome to Book Witches, but with a B. My name is Colleen White.
And I'm Urja Mira.
We are two friends that started out as coworkers and eventually learned that we both had a love for books, and that's what we talked about all the time, so we decided, why not record it? So here we are.
Here we are. Side note, I did move far away from my work bestie. And so we decided to start a podcast because we love books, because we love talking about them, and because we miss each other, and it's all my fault.
It is all her fault, and I'm a little upset about it, and that's okay.
That's
It's fine.
So, in the podcast, we will be talking, it'll be like a read-along sort of show where we go chapter by chapter in groups of chapters of some of the books that we love to read and sort of discuss them. We will try our best not to give any spoilers. We might have some spoiler-specific content that is labeled as such in separate episodes. The first book that we are going to be reading and discussing with everyone is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. One of my favorite book series of all time, of course, is ACOTAR. So
100% agree. We were both like, what's going to be the first one? And we didn't even like hesitate. Like, people are like, oh, what's your first book? We go, oh, ACOTAR. Absolutely. Like, no questions asked.
Hands down, obviously. I will say this is a fantasy, technically a fantasy romance novel. There's not a whole lot of spice level in this. There might be a little bit of spice in some of the books that we talk about, but not all of them are going to be romance, fantasy specific genre. I think that Colleen and I both love reading all sorts of books. So we'll probably, we might take some suggestions. We have a list of books that we'd really love to discuss and share with everyone as well. But we are starting with A Court of Thorns and Roses.
We're very excited.
All right, so like I said, we are going to be doing chapters at a time for ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses. We are going to be discussing probably about 5 chapters an episode, depending on pacing and things like that. So what we'll do now is we'll go over what happens in the first 5 chapters of A Court of Thorns and Roses. Chapter 1, we open on sort of a desolate forest setting. It is the winter, it has started snowing, and our main character, a young woman named Feyre, is sitting in a tree waiting for game to come by that she can hunt and bring home to her family. We find out that Feyre is the youngest of 3 children. We find out that she is farther in the woods than normal because it's been a hard winter, so, animals are scarce. We find out that this is a little bit concerning to her, not only because being deep in the woods is dangerous to humans, but also because this brings her closer to the magical realm of Prythian, which lies about 2 days' walk north from her town. So we don't know how far into the woods she is, but she's farther out than normal. And her mind dwells on the morose in this, desolate setting as she's waiting for something to come across that she can hunt and bring down. We find out that Prythian, the land of the fairies, is separated from the mortal lands by a wall, presumably a magic wall, and they kind of keep to their own, and the mortals keep to their own. While she's thinking about all of this, a doe comes into a clearing and she gets ready to shoot it, but then she sees 2 glowing eyes of what turns out to be a ginormous wolf. Now, because she's so deep in the woods, she's been thinking about Prythian. She second guesses herself a little bit. This wolf is huge, larger than any wolf has any right to be. It seems to have near human intelligence. It's very stealthy. And Feyre luckily happens to have an ash arrow in her quiver, which is extremely rare. An ash arrow is made out of ash wood, and this is presumably one of the few things that can bring down a fairy. Because she's a little bit on edge and she's in danger of losing the doe to the wolf attack, she decides to kill the wolf after it has distracted itself with the deer. And so she takes the ash arrow, she shoots the wolf, and she brings it down. She does notice that the wolf seems to let her bring it down, which puts her a little bit more on edge. Ultimately, she realizes she can't carry both the wolf and the deer back because she is presumably a malnourished young woman from a poor family living off of the game that she hunts for them. And so she skins the wolf and she wraps the deer in it. She throws it over her shoulders and she heads home. Chapter 2 opens with Feyre approaching her home, and she can kind of hear her sisters squabbling from outside, and she smiles to herself despite the fact that she's had a long, harrowing day. We learn that her sisters' names are Elaine and Nesta. Nesta is the oldest, Elaine is the middle child, and we learn that no one really talks to their father, who does have a limp because he, you know, upset some creditors and they crippled him. And they did have a mom as well, but she died many years ago. The family, we learn, lost their fortune 8 years earlier when one of or a big investment is lost by Papa Archeron, who we don't really learn his name, so I'm going to call him Papa Archeron for the rest of forever. And we learn that Feyre is the only one who, unfortunately, was there to see when the creditors came and crippled Papa Archeron, which is just a horrifying thought. We learn that Feyre's mother, on her deathbed, made Feyre swear to stay together with her family and take care of them. We learn a few things from this. First, we learn that in this world, in the mortal realms at least, promises or your word are like law. To break a promise, to break an oath is like a cursed, blasphemous thing to do. We learn that that's probably the only reason that Feyre has been staying and taking care of her family, because as the youngest child, she went out into the woods and started hunting, presumably at, at least, hopefully she was a teenager. At most, she was a preteen when she went out into the woods and started hunting. We learn that no one really mentions anything that Feyre does. So she comes home, she cleans up, and then she's forced to skin the deer and butcher the meat and get everything prepared. And we learn that she is also like the sole breadwinner because her father, crippled as he is, can't really contribute. He tries to do wood carvings, but no one really buys them unless they take pity on him. We learn that although Nesta and Elaine both equally don't do anything to help Feyre unless forced, Elaine doesn't do it out of meanness. She bought Feyre some paints one summer before they were totally destitute because Feyre loves to paint, which is another detail that we get in this chapter. And she likes lovely things. She likes to plant flowers, which we will get back to later on in this episode. And she's the only sister who talks to their father. Nesta is a mean sister. The oldest sister definitely should have done more. She calls Feyre a feral beast. She does not like Feyre. It seems like she is only nice to Feyre because she knows her livelihood depends on it. So over dinner, after Feyre has gone and cleaned up and butchered the meat and all of that, they talk about their plans to go to the market the next day. Her sisters ask for new boots and new cloak and things like that, even though Feyre's shoes are too small for her and basically falling apart. Nesta and Feyre have a little bit of a spat when Feyre hears that Nesta has a proposal from the woodcutter's son, Thomas Mandray, which is particularly hilarious because Nesta refuses to go out and chop the wood for Feyre. And Feyre delivers a sick burn where she says, "How are you going to marry the woodcutter's son where you can't even chop the wood?" One of my favorite moments in in these first 5 chapters. And Feyre talks about that. So, and then Nesta brings up Feyre's lover, Isaac, even though they're sitting at the table in front of the father, and we find out that Feyre does have a lover. His name is Isaac, and we'll find out more about him in the coming chapters. We don't get a lot much else in this chapter. At one point, after Nesta and Elaine have gone to bed after storming off about something that Farah has said, probably the sick burn about the woodcutter's son. Farah's father, Papa Archeron, tells Farah, you know, people need hope. You should let people believe in a better life because they need hope. And Farah's like, yeah, whatever, hope's dead, essentially. Which, fair, because she's been the youngest of the family and she's been going out there and fighting for their survival. So in the next chapter, chapter 3, Farah, Elaine, and Nesta are walking down to the market and they run into a few members of a group called the Children of the Blessed. I call them a cult. They basically are this cult of humans that worship the fairies as if they were gods. You know, they don't take into account the fact that fairies used to rule over the humans. Humans were slaves. They were treated horribly. There was a great war, and then the wall was put up. There was a whole treaty by 6 mortal queens. We get a lot of history in this first section here. So the Archeron sisters kind of have a confrontation. Nesta really shows like how she can be useful finally. She kind of squares up and tells off the Children of the Blessed. Farah calls her a queen without a throne. The way she squares up, she's a little bit of a predator with her words and her mind, and she basically tells them that they're ridiculous. They should be wearing iron, not silver. Iron is one of the other things that is said to ward off fairies. We're not, they seem pretty dubious about all of the information on what can actually fend off fairies, but iron is supposedly one of those things. Once they get past their confrontation with the Children of the Blessed, they get to the market, and Feyre decides to try to sell her pelts, the wolf and the deer pelt, to a mercenary. This mercenary is described as a mountain of a woman. She is kind of scary and gruff looking. She's sitting there, and Feyre decides to take her chances. So once she gets into sort of conversation with the mercenary, she learns a little bit about some alarming news. Apparently, there have been fairies coming through the wall into mortal lands and terrorizing villages near the border. The mercenary warns Feyre, don't go that far out in the woods again. She also looks at the wolf that Feyre's still kind of on edge about, and she says, it doesn't look like a fairy to me. It looks like it was just a wolf. She's very impressed with Feyre, and she can kind of glean her situation. So she overpays her, or what we think is overpaying her, at this point in time for the wolf and the deer hide. She warns Feyre about all of the dangers. It looks like there's maybe more fairies coming over the wall than there have been, or there should be, since it's supposed to be a border to protect them. She tells Feyre that her previous employer left for the continent, and that if Feyre was smart, if she was able to, she would gather money and take her family and leave for the continent as well. Colleen, there's a map.
so, so to give some context about this, I am mostly an audiobook person. I know there's some debate on that. Here nor there. I mostly listen to audiobooks. I listen to it at work. It's the way I can get book reading in. And so in preparation for this, I was like, maybe I should try reading. So I finally got like a physical copy of this book and was like sliding through on Kindle. And I was like, hey, Orja, did you know that there's a map?
Which I did not know. I do read books. I prefer reading over audiobooks. I like audiobooks, but I prefer reading. I skip the map. That's my toxic trait. I skip the map. I don't care about what the lamp looks like. I just want to get to the reading.
So if you would like to look up this map, which I think you should, it is truly not a spoiler. It is the first page of the book. It's just like elongated UK. Like essentially it's like if you took like it's literally like England and Scotland but stretched out, and then there's Ireland and then like vaguely Europe. Yes. Like he legitimately was like, I'm not even gonna try, it's England.
It's England. Oh, but the mortal lands are Wales. The mortal lands are Wales. It makes me so happy for some reason.
They are Wales. A kingdom called Highburn, which we learn about later, again, whatever, is Ireland, and then it looks like the rest of it's kind of supposed to be more like up in Scotland, so it looks like maybe like the Fairylands are like lower, maybe is in England, and the further up is like closer into Scotland. So yes, it is essentially Long England. Yeah. So
good for context. Good for context.
Yeah.
Later on. All right. So after Farah talks to the mercenary, she gives Nesta and Elaine some of the money that she got, and she goes and has a tryst with Isaac, and then she returns home. And so they're all kind of having a snoozy dinner and winding down. And they're about to start a topic of conversation when all of a sudden there's a huge roar and a big beast bursts through their cabin door. And that's the end of chapter 3. And chapter 4 starts where we left off. The beast is hulking, this big giant thing. It's described as having a wolf like body, but it has antlers on its heads, and it's just this ginormous, huge beast of a thing. It's yelling, murderer! And everyone's really confused except for Feyre, who is like, oh dear, I guess that wolf wasn't just a wolf. She knows immediately. And, even though she's described as a slip of a thing, she's malnourished, she does go out and hunt for her family. However, this tiny thing, she's the youngest of the family. There's something in her. She grabs a knife and she's trying to protect her family against this ginormous monster beast thing. We find out that the wolf was indeed a fairy, and that there is a part of the treaty that was built between the humans and the fairies that if a human attacks and kills a fairy unprovoked with hatred in their heart, then they have to trade a life for a life. We also find out in this chapter that iron doesn't do anything to fairies. However, we find out that ashwood is something because the beast destroys the ashwood arrow but doesn't react at all to the iron. So while this is all happening, Farah's kind of desperately trying to figure out what to do. She can't die. How is her family going to survive without her? And the beast says, there is a loophole that I can offer you. You can trade your life for a life by coming to live with me for the rest of your life in Prythian. This doesn't really help Farah. She decides that she maybe should go with him so that she can spare her family from the trauma of watching her be killed. But she's still freaking out because she made the promise to her mother to take care of her family and stay together, and she just does not know how they're going to survive once she's gone, which is fair because they've shown no evidence that they can survive without her. She decides that the best thing to do is to go and live in Prythian. She'll go with the beast and she'll try to figure out if she can slip away somehow and run back. Before she goes, however, she notes two things. She knows that Nesta will take care of Elaine no matter what, probably won't take care of her father. And then she has one of the most heartbreaking goodbyes that I've ever read in a book. Her father goes to her and says, don't come back. If you ever find a way to get away, you've always been too good for us. Don't ever come back here. Go and make a life for yourself. Feyre feels she doesn't know how to feel. This is not the goodbye she was expecting from her father, but she wasn't really expecting a weepy goodbye or anything, but she was certainly not expecting him to tell her to never come back. So after that, she kind of stumbles into the woods with the beast and she gets on a horse and they're on their way. Which brings us to chapter 5. In chapter 5, we don't get a whole lot. Feyre is riding through the woods with the beast. She's on a horse. The beast is walking beside her. She's trying to figure out what's going to happen. She's freaking out about what kind of life, quote unquote, life she's supposed to be living in Prythian. She knows technically slaves were outlawed, but is she going to be kept in a dungeon? Is she going to be tortured? Is she going to be living in a place? Is she going to be in the woods and be, prey to all of the other types of fairies out there? She doesn't know. And so she's trying to figure out all of that and trying to figure out how she's going to get away from the beast as well. And as she's asking him questions, it's the beast is a he. As she's asking him questions, he decides that he doesn't want to talk to her, so he puts her into a magical sleep instead. She wakes up 2 days later, and she is in Prythian. I think that one of the most striking things to note here is that she left the mortal realms and it was terribly cold. Dead of winter, so cold that it it was just really horribly frigid and cold. And she wakes up in Prythian and it's warm and there's birds singing and it feels kind of peaceful. And she notices not only are there birds singing, it's peaceful, it's warm and all of that, But other than the wildlife, it's kind of empty. She doesn't see any other fairies. She doesn't notice anything dangerous. And then they come upon this huge estate, this gorgeous estate with gardens and fountains and a big grand entrance and all of that. And basically that's the end of chapter 5. She walks into the house behind the beast. She realizes she can't run away because she's been in a magical sleep for 2 days and she's too hungry and dizzy. So she decides to go into the beast's house and figure out a way to get away then. And that brings us to the end of chapter 5. That is our recap for episode 1. Let's go into characterization. Let's talk about the characters that we've met. I will let you speak for a little bit.
Okay, well, the first person we met was Feyre, of course. She's definitely very much a typical, I would say, like, YA dystopian character in a good way, but like she definitely, like we mentioned, the Hunger Games. She has that, like that feistiness, that determination. I mean, she literally hunts with a bow and arrow. Like the parallels to Katniss are pretty strong.
Yeah.
I would say Katniss is probably a pretty strong inspiration. Actually, I don't know when this came out. I'm assuming definitely later than the Hunger Games. I think so. I know she was writing, I think, other series around the same time as maybe when Hunger Games was coming out, but this definitely, I think, would be post. She's very smart, very sassy, very resourceful. I mean, she was able to like tenaciously go out in the woods and do the things that she needed to learn. She is also very emotionally stunted. I think because of the emotional neglect.
Yes.
Emotions are not her strong suit.
No. We find out that Feyre is an artiste.
Oh, yes, she paints. I do forget. I don't know why. I think I blocked this fact out about her every time. So she paints a lot. Do we learn about her, like, drawers that she paints on?
Yes,
this one?
we do. We do. So Farah is very artistic. She loves to paint. Elaine bought her paints one of the years when they were poor but not destitute yet. And
Yeah.
Farah painted around the house. Foreshadowing.
She does talk a lot about those. She talks about, like, the little, like, flowers that she painted along the, like, sides of the, table. And she talks about, like, as they fade away. I don't know if it's in this one or later, but as they fade away, she's terrified that she's going to be forgotten. Because, like, as it chips and fades away, she's also fading away, which I think is, like, pretty astute and, like, really sad. That, like, really tied, and, like, how much it very clearly shows how much she feels like she matters to her family. Like, she understands that she provides a lot for them, but in terms of, like, everything else, she really doesn't put herself, like, high in really any esteem, in her own, let alone her family's. And then she also paints on this, like, chest of drawers. And I think there's 3 of them, one for each sister. So on Nesta's, she paints flames. On Elaine, she paints a beautiful spring, like, garden situation. And then we have some thoughts on that, but no spoilers. We're going to talk about that later. And then on hers, she paints the night sky, which I think is gorgeous and wonderful. And so I think it's interesting that she, like, did things that she associated them with. We don't really know why she associates herself with nighttime. The other 2 definitely seem to make sense. Hers seems a little random.
I get the feeling that it's because it's, like, peaceful to her, I feel like, you know?
She probably starts hunting a lot. Like, typically when you hunt, there's not hunting laws in this, but typically you go out in the morning and then you wait till sunrise to shoot. She probably didn't have to. There was probably hers, or if there was, she definitely was not following them. So it wouldn't surprise me a lot.
That's what I assumed, at least. But yeah, I did notice when I was reading the first 5 chapters, she just uses so many colors. Like, everything is color. Farah sees the world in colors. She's constantly telling herself, don't do that. You have more important things to do. Like, hunt her. But she can't help it. She sees the world in colors. And I'm not just talking like, I'm talking like very, very descriptive colors, like pumpkin and
like sunset orange or like sky blue. It's not just like that's blue. It's like a very, like, she associates color very strongly with objects, I think. Objects and like what those objects remind her of. There seems to be like a good tie with that.
Yes. So that's Feyre. We meet,
we can talk about what I call deadbeat dad, Papa Archeron.
Papa Archeron, deadbeat dad.
We clearly dislike this character. I very clearly dislike this character.
I agree.
He clearly is not. I understand that he does have a disability. I am not doubting the fact he probably cannot hunt. I am not saying that he can or can't. I think there's other things he could do that isn't physically hunting. I do think some of the snare trapping and cleaning. There's a lot of things that he could do. Clean the animals. He does nothing and just likes to pretend, I guess, that they're just kind of there. The only thing that he really does in this chapter, that if I remember correctly, is scold Feyre for not letting her family have enough hope, which, of course she's not going to have hope. Why are you like this? The only thing he ever does, essentially, for her in this whole section is tell her that she needs to basically, let them have hope and don't come back.
Yes.
That is pretty much the only interaction we ever see him with Feyre. Him and Elaine's relationship seems to be better, which we'll get into that a little bit later, but definitely, some warmth there. And I think he is terrified of Nesta and just also tries to act like she doesn't exist, which is fair. We'll be honest.
Nesta. One thing that Papa Archeron also does, before we forget, is he carves wooden figurines.
I have a theory about this.
I love your theory.
So one of the things that he does is he does all these carvings, right? And he's like, oh, I can totally do this. He kind of tries to sell them, but not overly. I think what's happening, because Feyre's very artistic, right? She loves all of these art things. She never mentions that they're good carvings, right? She just says that he does carvings. I have a theory that Papa Archeron is just really bad at wood carving, but thinks he's phenomenal, and no one has the heart to tell him that he's just this bad, kick a man when he's down kind of situation. Yeah. I think he's just really bad at it, and that's why he can't sell anything.
I love that theory. I also, we have clearly talked about this book so many times. I also love your theory that all he does is really bad bear carvings.
Yeah, specifically bear carvings. It's you're kind of is it a dog? Is it a...
No, it's a bear.
No, it's a bear, and you're like, why is its tail so long? Why specifically does it have a weirdly long tail? And he's sometimes bears have long tails.
Like a human. This is creepy. Yeah.
I also think that he doesn't go in the woods, he actually doesn't know what a bear looks like. So he's just approximating what he thinks a bear should look like.
Genius. Love this theory.
I think when this beast, storms in, he's like, is that a bear? Do they have antlers? Is that why, is that the part that I've been missing this whole time? Is the antlers?
I love that.
I actually never that. I wonder if he carves. I would assume he would have to carve the beast after he left. They never talk about it.
Oh, he must.
I don't know why. If you're an artiste, which I don't think he is, but if that's a thing that you're seeing, I don't know why you wouldn't, unless you just want to pretend it doesn't happen, which seems to be his.
It wouldn't put it past him, but I feel like he tries to carve the beast.
But he chops off one antler every time, and he has to start over because he can't quite right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So clearly we are Papa Archeron haters.
Yeah, he sucks.
He truly is. I understand he got put in a weird situation. I'm we don't know all the context, and we go into that a little bit more later. But I understand it's not great, but also you're a grown man. Get it together.
Yes. Don't let your youngest daughter. I'm sorry, I know I keep saying that, but your youngest daughter go out and risk her life frequently.
Yeah.
We get very little bit about her, but we hear about the mother. We don't have any sort of name for her. Things we know about her. She was cold. She probably was manipulative. The only person she ever loved was her husband. Nesta looks like her. I think we find out.
I think they all look like her, but Nesta looks like the most. So she's a spitting.
Yeah. And then we find out that her mothering skills, although we should have known based on everything else, are so bad because she decides to ask her youngest daughter to keep everyone together and take care of them, knowing that this child is not going to be like, why aren't you asking someone who's more capable? Her child is going to be like, yes, anything, mother who's dying, I love you, Yeah.
And we never really get an explanation for that, by the way. We never understand, truly why the mom was this is the person. I've never really quite understood that part, unless I missed it in later books. I don't think we ever really get an explanation.
I don't believe so. I don't believe
I know.
so. Then we get Elaine and Nesta. Who would you like to talk about first?
I really dislike both of them, to be honest. I dislike both of them for different reasons. We can start with Elaine, because to me, she's the most forgettable, and that sounds mean, but she is. I forgot she existed at one point. Uh, so, like the Taylor Swift song, forgot you existed. If you ever hear, just throwing that out there. But Elaine, everyone supposedly, I think this is just my personal pet peeve of I never like a character that is described as everyone liking them. I'm immediately not going to like them because I'm like, why are you universally adored? Because no one's universally adored necessarily. Like, there's always going to be some sort of conflict with other people, regardless. But she's described as like universally adored and like sunshine and like lovely and
lovely. The word lovely is
yeah,
used so often to describe her.
it is. Which to me seems like a very shallow description, and I don't necessarily think Elaine is shallow. I think a lot of people view her as shallow, and so they just kind of have this like surface level, like, which is what she shows them. I think it's like her version of a mask, essentially. But her like very like vapid, lovely, like, oh, the world's so sunshine and rainbows, and I'm gonna plant my garden, even though I should probably plant vegetables, but I'm growing flowers.
Yes. Okay. Elaine likes to garden. Elaine likes to grow things. She likes to grow pretty things, so she grows flowers. But Elaine could have been growing edible plants as well for her family. She could have been contributing the entire time. Elaine.
She strikes me as the one I think would be the most likely, in a weird way, to actually contribute more than like Nesta was. But it's like it never occurred in her brain that she had any way that she could.
I agree.
I think if there was like a
sorry, go ahead.
something presented to her, she'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. But like outside of that, no.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that I think that Farrah even like mentions it. Farrah says something along the lines of, what is it? Like, it's not that Elaine is mean or is rude or is like helpless on purpose. It's more that it doesn't occur to her that she could be the kind of person to help out. I don't think that's a good enough excuse because she sides with Nesta. Like, she's Nesta's creature, is the impression that I get.
I agree. Yeah, which some of that could also be because Nesta never let her either. Like, I don't necessarily know if Elaine was ever given the freedom. We learn a little more context about this. It's very clear in this chapter that, like, even like when the beast comes in, Nesta is only protecting Elaine. Like, it's very apparent that that is Nesta's only goal. So some of that could just be Nesta being Nesta. But I still don't think any of that is an excuse. She is her own person and her own woman, and definitely should have done something. Very clearly, Farrah saw and did it and figured it out. So it's not that like none of them were capable of not doing it.
Yes, which brings us to Nesta.
Oh, Nesta.
Nesta. I hate her so much.
She's truly a
she is a nightmare. I'm speaking just within the context, for all you people out there who've read the book and the series and know things. I am speaking specifically about
in this book.
In these chapters, Nesta, it pisses me off so much.
She's absolutely horrible. Like, this little, which she's supposed to be. Like, she is actually supposed to be a horrible nightmare. Like, I don't think even Sarah would argue that that's not what she's supposed to be in these chapters. Like, she is supposed to be the, like, bratty, haughty, neglectful older sister.
Yes. And she is. She's mean. She teases Farrah about Isaac. I mean, we've said this multiple times in this episode. Nesta is capable. She could have gone out and chopped the wood without being asked twice. She could have helped Farrah with things. She could have she could have acknowledged Farrah. I mean, out of any of the ones in the household, Nesta should have really acknowledged Farrah and what Farrah does for them. But no, all she does is ignore her, insult her. She calls her a feral beast. She's only nice to her when she knows that Farrah has money coming so that she can buy things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I do agree with Nesta on is her hate for her father.
Yes.
I agree with wholeheartedly with that. we can both, if there was a point that I can agree with Nesta in these chapters, it is her complete and utter disdain for her father.
Agreed. We do see, Nesta is the one that takes down the children of the blessed. She takes them down a few pegs.
Yes.
She's not one to be reckoned with. She
she is very, genuinely a terrifying, character. Yeah.
And she does, the only time we see her, and that apparently that Farah has ever seen her protect her, is after Farah comes back from the mercenary. Nesta's like, hey, you shouldn't talk to those people, they're dangerous. And Farah is very confused, why Nesta is showing concern. I don't think that's ever explained. We never really find out.
No, it does definitely seem like Nesta is very good with people. She protects them from the children of the blessed and is trying to do it with the mercenaries. So it's she's not a physical protector, but she's definitely a emotional is not even the right word, but from
societal?
What did you say? Sorry?
A societal protector.
For social dangers of these people and maybe not understanding those types of things. She's very aware of people and their behaviors and their intentions. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
Agreed. And then the only other characters that we meet. Oh, sorry. Did you have any more thoughts on Nesta?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. The only other characters we really meet in this chapter before we talk about the beast and segue into our next segment is we meet the mercenary. She's cool. She's probably terrifying, but I like her.
I like terrifying women. I will state that. I don't dislike Nesta because she's terrifying. She's just rude. I love terrifying women. They're some of my favorite in literature. They're truly wonderful.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. We meet the children of the blessed who suck.
Isaac.
Yes. Yes.
Love him. We love Isaac.
Yes. Isaac is a real man of a young adult.
We love him. He's very much a gangly young man, but good. We love that.
He's a good man. He tried to buy Farah an iron bracelet. She refused because she thought it was too permanent.
Bless her. He's wonderful. He's very human.
Yes.
And we love that.
Yes. Isaac, not a single bad thing comes to mind for Isaac. He's amazing.
Truly.
Yeah. We don't really meet Thomas, but we do know that we need to stay away from him.
We don't like Thomas.
And we meet the beast, aka a fairy.
Yes, a fairy that just barges in the door.
Yeah. Barges in the door, lets us know that Farah, in fact, murdered a fairy, so ash arrows do work. We find out that iron does not work.
We do, yes. There's a lot of things that, we learned, just a little context to it. There's a lot of, iron's supposed to stop them. I think their father paid for, wards around the door that was supposed to stop fairy.
Something.
Very clearly did nothing. Didn't even, nothing, truly, at all, to stop any of them. But the ash arrows, weirdly, the one thing that works.
Yeah. Who would have thought? Beast is grumpy.
He's a grumpy Gus.
Decides to put a malnourished teenager to sleep for 2 days rather than talking to her.
I think it's wild that that's, in terms of the story, that's the first bit of magic that we see. In terms of, what is expressed, the first bit of magic that we see is this character not wanting to talk to her and just putting her asleep instead of dealing with it.
Yes.
Which is a wild first introduction to a character.
What?
And magic.
What kind of power? What?
What is he? Is he the Sandman? Is he just? Is that it? I think the first bit that we see is her falling asleep is really wild.
That's his only power.
The only power. Yeah.
What if that is his only power?
He's the Sandman.
Then he is the Sandman. He is the Sandman.
He's just Sandman. At that point, we will get into it, and we maybe can segue into that. I think at this point it's kind of apparent that the story is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Yes. Potentially with some Sandman thrown in there. We don't know yet. That's what we've seen. But yeah, especially the whole Beast barging into the door, grumpily kidnapping, young malnourished girl from maybe not the most attentive father
Mhm.
on the planet.
Yes,
So,
yes. Beauty and the Beast retelling. I have to be honest, I did not know it was the Beauty and the Beast retelling upon my first ever read of this series. But I found out pretty quickly. I think it was at this point in time the Beast entered and
yeah,
kidnapped her. And like, unbeknownst to me, this is actually a very well-known Beauty and the Beast retelling. They
it is.
described the Beast, and I was like, oh, this is the Beast. This is the Beast
It,
from Beauty and the
it,
Beast.
it's the Beast. Yeah, I did know this, so I was really hesitant to start this series when I initially did it, but I do love Beauty and the Beast, like most girls who loved reading growing up. I think Belle was one of our favorites. And I was told, like, oh, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I was like, all right, like, and it's a good one. I was like, okay, I love good, because, like, I've read some that were bad. I think we all have.
Oh, yes.
So definitely wanted to it. So I did know that going into it. It's not like it doesn't strictly follow Beauty and the Beast, I would say, but it's definitely like very clearly inspired by Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, especially when you like read the name A Court of Thorns and Roses,
Yeah,
the rose motif and all
yeah.
of that. Um, so in this version of Beauty and the Beast, Belle's father is not an inventor, but in fact a good for nothing a-hole.
He's really yeah. Still like same level of like maybe a little bit lack of attention, but
Yes.
for like one is just like kind of sweet, quirky dad. The other one's like emotional neglect and abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have the Beast, and then we have Feyre.
Yeah.
Feyre is supposed to derive from the word meaning like fair, as in beautiful.
Mhm.
And Belle's name also means beautiful.
Yeah.
That is not what I did not know it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling when I first read it. Um,
Mhm.
I just saw the name Feyre next to fairies, and I
I,
was like, fairy?
I don't think I knew that her name meant fair until just now.
Oh, you're welcome.
It meant fairy. So you're not the only one. I knew this was a Beauty and the Beast retelling and wasn't looking for it. They also never did they ever talk about that?
Sort of a spoiler, but a character does mention to Feyre later on in the books when she kind of gets all dressy for an occasion that she looks like her namesake.
Oh, okay. I definitely just fully missed that. I'm not great at reading contextual clues.
That's
Just a little.
fine. That's fine. The only reason I remember that just now is because we're specifically talking about it. And I have read
Gotcha.
this book so many times.
That's fair.
So, um, yeah. Anything else? I don't think we have much else. Oh, in Beauty and the Beast, it's like a normal town, village, whatever, and the Beast's castle is very cold and winter and dark.
Yes.
We have the inverse here. The mortal
Mhm.
world is, you know, freezing cold in the winter. It's snowing. Everyone's destitute. I get a very bleak landscape, and then in Prythian, it's like summer, maybe spring, and it's like colorful. The birds are out. It's warm. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, so interesting.
Very clear difference in
Yes.
terms of environment and like setting.
Yes, and I think that that's all we really get
Yeah.
for that. All right, on to our next segment. Let's talk a little bit about I guess the world building and the mythology within this universe. We can also talk a little bit about what we know about fairies, like from our universe, like in the real world.
Yes. Yes. So we definitely learned. We touched on it a little bit. So like in terms of like I don't know, when I think of fairies, I guess what I thought about, I was a big fairy girl growing up. I had the little like purple fairy book, if you know, you know. And they were always like mischievous and like kind of cute. It appears that they are more predators
Yes.
in this film.
Yes.
Definitely, like they are a feared thing. They're not like a little sprite, that sits on your shoulder. They're like big beasties. I mean, technically the only fairies we see, we think is the wolf, I guess, and the beast.
Yes, that's true.
We don't even really get names. So like really all we're seeing is animalistic style fairies. which I think is interesting because I also don't think that's typically what you think of.
That's true. I do think there's a little bit, I think we do get the detail, which I seem to have forgotten to mention. We do get the detail that apparently fairies can't lie.
Oh,
A main reason, one of the main reasons that Farah actually is like, okay, I will go with you if you're not going to kill me or my family, because you can't lie. So I know that you at least can't kill them right now, and you're not going to kill me right now. Um,
yeah,
um,
yes.
but they
Which I
are tricksy.
understand.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was like, I understand that she like trusts this, but like, it's never been tested as far as we know. Like in theory, like this is I don't know. My thought process, if I was Pharaoh, right, is it has been, which she is relatively suspicious of certain things and not of others, I would say. Like, I think she was always suspicious of the runes that were put on and, like, the iron stuff she seems a little bit suspicious of. But in terms of the lack of lying, it's been 500 years since anyone's talked to a fairy. Do you not think in 500 years that maybe something got lost in translation? Somewhere.
She does say, like, because they can't lie, she needs to be careful because they are tricksy. So, like, they can
That's,
speak in riddles, even though they can't lie, they can find ways around it with their language. Like the loophole that the beast offers her, like, well, you have to offer your life, you can come live with me and Prythian instead. Um,
yes. Which
so
the tricksy thing is common amongst typical Fae lore. I think almost any Fae anything you've read, like being very careful in the Fae realm. Everyone's always afraid of the Fae realm. I think it's kind of fun.
take me
But
now.
you can definitely get yourself trapped in a very weird situation if you were not careful. But if you're clever, very fun.
Yes. I did have a lot, so I didn't do I guess my introduction to fairies was a little bit with like fairy tales and like stuff like Tinkerbell. She's a pixie, but or I mean, she's a fairy. She's a fairy because the whole I do believe in fairies thing.
Yeah, I think we just think of her as the size of a pixie,
Yeah.
but she.
She's a fairy. So like that sort of thing, but I don't know how it happened or like what the first time it happened. I read a lot as a child, big surprise. I have always refused to read nonfiction unless it was for like school.
But that
Um,
deeply.
so I did read a lot of like children's fantasy and young adult fantasy. And I think that's kind of where I got more into the whole like fairy realm. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, they were always a little dangerous. I was still absolutely fascinated. I was still like, I would love to. Magic. What
Yeah,
do you mean danger?
love that. Yeah.
But iron being like the kryptonite to fairies, fae folk was normal for me. So I was surprised that iron
Really.
doesn't work against these fairies.
Hmm. I think I didn't. I did not think of it that way. Partially because I think like my interaction with them is like a children's book, or I also play D&D. So like D&D, I don't think iron is. You can correct me. I don't know all the D&D lore. I don't think iron is that. I always think of like physical things like that, or like even like the ash arrow situation that we talked about a little bit, being more like vampire based,
Mhm.
or like a cryptid based,
Yeah.
more than like fantasy fae being
Yeah,
things.
I mean I agree, except for the iron because I've read a lot of books, but yeah, other than that, I think we've talked a good deal about the world building and the setting a lot. We don't know a whole lot about it because we're in Farah's brain and she doesn't really know that much about it either. I
That is
have
true.
a feeling she's about to learn a whole lot more. Stay tuned.
Woo!
All right. On to our next segment. Are they hot or are they a beast?
Yes. This is a segment for a reason. Just hint, hint. um, this is ongoing.
It is
Uh,
ongoing. We will revisit every episode.
it can, and this also is up to your interpretation because it can be both.
It can be.
You can be hot and a beast.
Yes, yes.
Uh huh.
I think a lot of book girlies out there know what we mean, but if you're new, welcome. We're sorry.
Welcome. you can do both. If someone randomly sent this to you and you have no context, have fun. Do some googling. You'll be fine.
Let's put it in this context. If we're talking like metaphorically, like like the humans that we know and love today, if you describe someone as a beast of a man, it could be a bad thing, but it could be a hot thing too.
It can be a hot thing. Yes, yes. I also think we can all agree that at some point in our lives, we've had an uncomfortable crush on an animated character that was not human. So,
Don't get me
but they,
started.
but they had human traits, which I think is a big difference.
Yes, very important.
Like they are human-esque. They seem like they have like a human soul element to them. They're just a little furry. So
Yeah, thanks, Disney.
We did recently have a conversation about this.
We did. I realized that Disney is directly the reason that I like the books that I like today.
It's true.
And
Also,
fell in
the
love
great
with
inspiration.
Beastly. Good always, did you just say good always wins?
I was saying it's directly inspired by this segment. So yeah, so essentially, really the only like beast type people we meet is I guess Thomas Mandray, but he's not hot. And the Beast, who I do like them grumpy. I do love a grumpy man. I don't necessarily like a man that puts me asleep against my will when I ask him questions.
No, especially after kidnapping me. Come on, have some morals.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like barging into my house, like depending on the situation. In real life, absolutely not. Fantasy wise, could look past it. And then kidnapping me again in books could look past it. But putting me to sleep when not answering my questions, I'm gonna put him currently in the Beast category.
Just Beast. Isaac is just hot.
Isaac is just hot. I
Not a
agree.
beast.
I think Isaac never leaves the hot category.
Yeah, Isaac is just always just hot.
Really enough to be a beast. I picture him like very
Lanky.
like a lanky man, but like a very sweet one.
Yes.
Yes. So he is just hot. Yes,
Agreed.
I agree.
Let's go back to the whole Beauty and the Beast thing because I have some information to add to that.
Okay.
So, love Beauty and the Beast. Love it. You can't convince me I'm wrong. I understand Stockholm Syndrome is just problematic. I don't care. I love Beauty and the Beast. I saw this reel the other day on Instagram. I'm a millennial. I get my TikToks from Instagram. But it was this reel that was like Beauty and the Beast if Belle was a millennial, and it's just like she's like, wow, this castle's really nice, and he's like, yeah, but you can never leave, and she's like, oh yeah, great, like I assume I'm gonna have to do like chores and stuff, and he's like, no, and she's like, I don't have to do anything.
I have to do nothing.
And it's like, oh, but like you probably want me to do something with my time. No, you can do whatever you want. You just can never leave. What? Do I have to pay rent? No. Here's a library. I'm sorry. I would also fall in love with the Beast.
Yes, I agree. The Beast is not the worst. Like truly, I know the kidnapping thing is like not
but
great.
He didn't. Well, in this book, he kidnaps her, but in Beauty and the Beast, he does not kidnap her.
She trades herself. Technically, kidnaps her father.
No. Her father bursts into his castle, and he's like, I hate intruders.
Yeah, that is fair. I do think home invasion not great. Don't know if like
keeping
personal
sense
for
their entire life not great either.
Wait, is the Beast just like vigilante Batman?
Yes.
He's just Batman.
But just for his castle.
Just for his property. He's what Batman should be instead of because like we don't have to go off on that tangent, but truly Batman does not give a crap about the rest of Gotham. He just wants to protect his own peace, but that's here nor there.
How did we get here? Okay, I think that concludes our segment of are they hot or are they a beast? Because we don't have any other contenders yet.
Not yet.
I mean, okay, Nest is a beast and she's hot.
She is a good, like, hot but kind of a beast.
Yeah.
She is a very good example of can be both.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Farrah's also hot and a beast, I think.
Yeah, I think it was more like hot and feral, which is beastly, but like I feel like feral's maybe a slightly different category.
It is slightly different. It's slightly different. So yeah.
Not fully, but slightly.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right. Are we ready for our next segment?
I'm excited.
Daddy issues.
This is my favorite segment, by the way.
I will let you start.
Oh, yeah, essentially because of the recurring chronic problem in this novel, this is not a spoiler, it just is. I think we can tell by this first chapter that daddy issues are going to be incredibly prevalent. And every character has daddy issues. No matter who we meet, they will have some form of daddy issues.
Literally.
Literally all of them. We're trying to sit here to think of one that doesn't. I cannot think of a single one.
No. No, because, like, Papa Archeron clearly has daddy issues, both being a dad and the issues that he faces with being a really bad dad. But also, like,
Yeah.
those stem from somewhere. He has daddy issues.
The only person that may not have daddy issues is Isaac.
Oh my
I
God,
think
you're right.
Isaac's wonderful. I think he's the only character in this entire book
We
series
found him.
that doesn't have very deep rooted daddy issues.
Yes, I think you're right. Other than him, every single one. We've talked
Mhm.
extensively
We
about the daddy issues. I still wanted to introduce this segment though because it's important because it will get longer.
It will get longer. So we can essentially establish Papa Archeron, daddy issues. All of the Archerons very clearly have such strong trust. Feyre has such bad daddy issues that she won't even accept a present from this wonderful person because she thinks it's too much to expect.
Yeah.
Like, that is the definition. Nesta really is like walking daddy issues. She's a she's a walking daddy issue red
She's
flag.
just like a big
Feyre,
old banner.
it's just like tattooed on her forehead, like truly. I think there's also could be some mommy issues sprinkled on there, but that's different. But it's very clear that all of these characters clearly have some fatherly issues that just manifest in the weirdest, not even weirdest, but like just wild ways, maybe. I would say later on.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
wait to get into
The
it.
emotional maturity of these characters is like none.
Yeah.
Like they get there, but like it's at this point you can't really tell, like we're not fully into it, but there's definitely like some emotion hunting that comes.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. All right. We do have another segment, the Feyre is dumb segment.
oh we and I will say, well, outside of killing the not wolf thing that she's like
Is it a wolf?
could or
Is
could
it a
not be.
fairy? Is it a wolf? Is it a fairy? I don't know.
So I thought about this, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but it is related to like is Feyre dumb potentially. So we talked about killing both the deer and the wolf, and we skinned the wolf, and we eat the deer meat. Do they eat the wolf meat?
No.
Do they not? Do they specify this?
Yes, she does specify she cannot carry both animals. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so she can't carry both, so she skins the wolf, wraps the deer in it, and puts them both on her shoulders and walks home.
Yes. Okay, that is good. I don't know why. Like when you were talking about that, I was like, wait. I was like, this book takes a much darker turn than I remember. It does have any. Okay, this is me not remembering any details. I have read this book so many times. I just have zero concept. Like general arching themes and characters got you. Details absolutely not. Okay, then never mind.
Yeah.
We can move on.
I'm a very detail-oriented person, but I like to read books over and over again because I notice new details every time.
I notice different characterization each time. Like or like something about a character. That's a little bit more what I focus on.
Yeah. I will say, and this is not a spoiler alert because I'm not spoiling anything, but I have picked up on so much foreshadowing this go around because I've been taking
Really?
notes while reading. Like she drops so much in the first 5 chapters. It's unbelievable.
That is actually very interesting. I don't look for that ever. I will be honest. Even if you tell me there's foreshadowing, I'm not going to remember that it's there. Ever in my life. Never once. That was the worst section of like schooling, I would say, when they're like, what are they foreshadowing? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember. Don't make me do
But
this.
Colleen's not great at context clues. Keep that in mind.
Social skills are not my strong suit. Always. Anywho, yes, context clues are bad. But what was the segment? Where we were. I got distracted.
It was Farrah's dumb. I don't think there's not a lot for that here. She's not and to be clear, we both love Farrah.
Oh, she's incredible.
She's incredible.
Wonderful.
She's brave. She's strong. She's very intelligent. She's resourceful. She's a little bit of a dum-dum sometimes.
She makes very dumb life choices.
Yes.
I would say like the choices she's made like up until now, I don't necessarily think are dumb ones. I think it's ones that she had to make.
Mhm.
It is later on that this gets so much worse.
Yes.
Some of these are because we've read these books and we know what we need for the future.
Yes. Yes. And I think other than that, let's see. Do we have any general thoughts, anything that we want to add about these first 5 chapters and the rest of or what they mean for the rest of the book or the rest of the podcast?
Not that I can think. I mean, truly, I don't know if we stated this. I think we have. We do genuinely love these books so much to the point that we do like picking it apart. Like, it may sometimes sound like we don't like this book. We love it truly and dearly.
Truly.
We have read it, as we've said. So, very excited to dig into it more. I am like having a hard time not spoiling things ahead of time, so I'll be excited once we get a little more into it and can like talk about some more things.
Can't wait.
Yes.
We are once again book witches with a B. We love to read. Yeah, so I think that pretty much wraps up our first episode. We are so excited. We can't wait to meet all of you and start getting some questions and interactions and some listeners. We're so excited.
Yeah.
All right, signing out.
Bye. Little finger.
Let me stop. Hi, me again. I am here to let you all know where to find us. You can find us on Instagram at BookWitchesPod. You can find us on Spotify at BookWitches with a B. You can find us on YouTube at BookWitches with a B, and you can find us on TikTok at BookWitchesPod. All of this information is also going to be listed below our episode, and it's going to be listed in the ending credits if you're watching along with us in the videos. We'll catch you guys soon.